Right now, a topsy-turvy stock market has many of you hanging on to your retirement accounts. How you can protect your nest egg in this ongoing trade war. Plus, there's a new surge in what's being called build-to-rent communities, why there's a heightened demand for this type of living. And who's in and who's out in 2026. We're going to look at who might be eyeing higher office. This is The Take. Let's go. Hello, I'm Chesley McNeil, and this is The Take, where we go above and beyond the headlines and look at the why and how stories are impacting you and your community. We invite experts in to give their take on today's top stories. We try to have a little fun as well. Well, the new tariffs, imports on almost 90 countries took effect at 12:01 today, and this is the big one. The average tariffs faced by dozens of nations Trump targeted is 29%, with as many as high as 40%. They include an additional 84% bump for Chinese goods after President Trump's retaliation battle with China. Add to that bumps earlier this year, and the total hike for Chinese imports is 104%. This morning, China fired back with an additional 50% tariffs on U.S. imports. At a dinner for the National Republican Congressional Committee, President Trump says nations are lining up to make deals, and he is turning the tables on trade.
And I do think that the war with the world, which is not a war at all, because they're all coming here. Japan is coming here as we speak. They're in a plane flying, lots of them, all tough negotiators. But things that people wouldn't have given us 2 years ago, wouldn't have even thought of it 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 5 years ago, 7, they're giving us everything.
The ramping up of tariffs is keeping the financial markets on edge. We are less than 30 minutes from the opening of the markets, and the Dow is trying to rebound after dropping nearly 1% on Tuesday. The S&P 500 fell 1.5%, and the NASDAQ composite lost more than 2%. Uncertainty is running high about what the White House will do next in this trade war, and that's causing many to worry about their retirement plans. Here to make sense of it all is Atlanta-based financial advisor Barry Spencer. And Barry, welcome back to the show, first of all.
Absolutely. Good to be with you again this morning.
All right. So the markets went south for many of us. And here in the newsroom, we've been talking about our 401k savings. Let's get the short answer on this. Yes or no? Is our 401k in jeopardy?
Well, you know, what you see with your 401ks and all the equity markets right now is what has always been around, and that is the stock market roller coaster ride. And so what people really need to be thinking about in this moment is how did that feel financially and how did it feel psychologically? And then decide whether to stay on that roller coaster ride over the next years and decade ahead, or to somehow look at ways to insulate from that roller coaster ride. And that becomes more and more important the closer you are to retirement and in retirement. For those further out, say they're in the save mode versus the secure mode, it can be a little bit different approach.
So you're saying let it ride for a year. Like if we're looking at it right now, and I try not to look, you don't just jump off, right?
Well, a lot of people are saying that, and that's probably the best strategy is to not look, especially if you have multiple years until retirement, because honestly, the drop in the market for those who are in save mode, they want that drop because they're adding to their savings over the years and they're not going to be using those for a long time. But those who are in retirement or close to retirement, say within even 3 years or 5 years of retirement, they need to be thinking about their strategy and their overall investment plan when it comes to how much they want to stay on this stock market roller coaster ride. And they certainly don't want their income in retirement based on the stock market roller coaster. That is for sure.
Explain to us how much of a hit do swings like this really hit your funds?
Well, like we've seen here recently, about a 17% or so decline, but this is normal. A 17 or even 20% decline can come multiple times in a year or even 2 years. So this is a litmus test, if you will, to how you feel about your finances and how you feel emotionally, because what you want to prepare for is not just this decline, but the crash that you'll experience over the next during retirement, 2, if not 3 or 4 times during retirement. And that's what you got to be ready for, is the real crash, the real test of the market fortitude. And are you ready for that? And this is the litmus test to find out just how strong you are from an income standpoint if the market goes down, and from an emotional standpoint when you see the value decrease.
Is this what you've been doing in recent days, kind of talking people off the brink, really? Trying to talk them off the ledge?
Well, the honest truth is for our clients, we've been talking about this for years.
Ooh.
And the moment someone becomes one of our clients, we talk about the market crash and are you ready for that? So we market crash test every single portfolio from day one. So we've received no phone calls, no emails, no panics, zero over the last week and a half, because we've said these moments come and they come frequently, and we put that in front. And I think that's the thing about the financial industry. A lot of times people don't want to deal with the hard truth about what the roller coaster ride actually looks like and feels like, more importantly, for their clients. And so most are caught off guard and they're blindsided. And so we try to keep people from being blindsided by hedging and protecting their assets so that they're ready for these moments and they're off that roller coaster ride with money they need in the short term.
Wow, kudos to you guys. So what do you see? Do you see it getting better over time? What's your prediction for all this?
Well, I wish I had a crystal ball like everyone else, but I will say, tariffs come and go like presidential candidates come and go. And so the way this kind of plays out, no one really knows. And I think the best thing that people can do to focus on with their money, their 401ks, and their investments is to focus on the controllables and not the uncontrollables. There's those things in all of our life. And so if you can focus on the controllables in your life, you can start to have peace and confidence about the future. And the uncontrollables, you kind of hedge, you kind of protect as much as you can from those uncertainties like the ones we're in right now, but then come back and focus on those controllables, like having a full written documented investment plan, a full documented written income plan, and then a tax plan as well, because taxes are a huge part of retirement, because it's not about net worth in retirement, it's about net income at the end of the day.
All right, well, you certainly helped me off the edge just a little bit, Barry, just a little bit. Thanks for joining us today. We'll check back in with you soon, I'm sure. All right, we're going to get more on these new tariffs and a report from Washington, live report from Washington in just a few minutes. You want to stay right there for that. All right, today, a groundbreaking new emergency department in South Fulton will be going up. Grady Health Facility in Union City will offer 24/7 emergency care, a pharmacy, and imaging and lab centers. Today's groundbreaking starts at 10 a.m. The facility is set to open in 2026. There's a new rule for Delta airline passengers. It requires you to drop off bags at least 45 minutes before a domestic flight takes off. The rule went into effect on Tuesday and applies to all domestic flights leaving from Hartsfield-Jackson. If you're not checking bags, passengers need to be checked in at least 30 minutes before departure and at the gate and ready to board 15 minutes before that flight takes off. All right, let's take a look at our 7-day outlook for today, and we are looking at, temperatures warming up a little bit. You're looking at 68 for an afternoon high temperature under mostly sunny skies. So that's going to feel a little bit better, right, psychologically. We'll do even better as we head into Thursday. 73 degrees will be the high temperature, but their changes are coming. We got a front that's going to be dropping into the area. It's going to increase our cloud cover and bring in a chance for some thunderstorms, but that won't happen until the evening. Much of the day on Thursday will be dry. A few of those scattered thunderstorms could be strong to severe. That's something we're watching out for. Should begin to taper off by Friday morning, and then Friday afternoon there's a chance for some wraparound, and so we'll see that happen on Friday afternoon. We'll cool off a little bit on Saturday, then rebound on Sunday back to the 70s, 80s by Monday and Tuesday of next week. We're back right after this. Welcome back. Right now, a new round of tariffs put into place by President Donald Trump. The White House says 70 countries have already reached out to negotiate down tariffs, something that Republicans are begging the president to do. Joining us now is NBC Washington correspondent Alice Barr, who's been covering politics for years now. And Alice, let's get right into it. This apparent GOP split with the president's strategy. Is there any signs that this divide is growing, especially with these new tariffs in place?
Good morning, Chesley. Yeah, we're starting to see a little bit more vocal concern from some Republicans. There was a committee hearing yesterday where several Republicans were pretty, outright about the fact that this could have a really damaging impact on some businesses, American businesses. One Republican lawmaker asked who he should choke if this doesn't turn out the way that the Trump administration is promising it will turn out. And to that, the response was, we're always happy to talk. We also heard from Senator Kennedy, who's always colorful, a Republican from Louisiana, saying pretty pleased with sugar on top to President Trump to please sit down with all the countries that want to lower their trade barriers and make a deal. And that's really the bottom line that you're hearing from Republicans that are speaking out, is they agree that there needs to be a more of an evening of the playing field in trade relations. But they want to start seeing the results of some of these negotiations. They want to start seeing some deals, and they think that that will go a long way toward calming investors and kind of relieving some of the pressure on the stock market. But to be clear, there are also a lot of Republicans that are standing with the president all the way and say that, you know, he wants to reshape global trade, and they're on board with that.
President is sounding strong with this. Does any of these negotiation talks signal a quick resolution, or is this just a long battle that we're in store for?
Yeah, I think it's probably a long battle. I mean, we have today the top trade advisor from South Korea is supposed to be coming to Washington to meet with some officials. And then President Trump also said that Japan is going to be sending a delegation to negotiate. So, I mean, there could be some quick announcements from countries like that, you know, have stepped forward and said that they want to negotiate. But China is really the central target here, and it is a critical trade relationship between the U.S. and China, you know, for our two countries and really for global trade and for global economic stability. And so the fact that now the U.S. has levied 104% tariffs on Chinese imports, and China responded with these 84% retaliatory tariffs on American goods, that's just been escalation on top of escalation at every turn in that really critical relationship. The president said last night at that Republican dinner where he spoke that he thought that China wants to make a deal but doesn't know how to begin. Neither side is showing any signs of budging right now. And so as long as that very important relationship remains at a stalemate, the U.S. consumer is going to be seeing a lot of impacts on electronics, apparel, every kind of good that we're used to buying at a lower price. It's going to be higher.
Wow. Yeah, business is already seeing an increase in prices. Are more companies worried about layoffs or scaling back production as the tariffs stay this high?
You know, that could be the next tier of this because, you know, there's a lot of discussion about how there's the stock market and then there's the economy. And the stock market has been going wild, as we've seen. But businesses actually make their own decisions, you know, with the stock market in mind. But once they start to look at their bottom line of how much more they're having to pay on materials, on ingredients that they're bringing into this country and having to pay those import taxes on, that's going to shrink their margins and make them think about, do they need to start cutting staff? What do they need to do in terms of the real world impacts that Americans are going to start to feel?
All right, NBC's Alice Barr, thanks so much for the insight. Really appreciate it. We'll see you again tomorrow. All right, Metro Atlanta is seeing a major shift in the housing market. A growing number of single-family homes are being built not to sell, but to rent. These build-to-rent communities offer renters the space and feel of a suburban home without the responsibility of home ownership. But some feel there's a big downside to this. 11Alive's Jonathan Martin joins us now with a closer look at his story in our Affording Atlanta series. And Jonathan, let's start. First of all, welcome to the show.
I'm glad to be here. I'm up earlier, a little earlier this morning, so glad to be here.
All right, why is Atlanta seeing many of these build-to-rent communities popping up?
Well, Chesley, if you ask developers, they say there is just a huge demand for this. We hear that Atlanta is full, right? But people are continuing to move here, and a lot of people are transplants. A lot of people may be even existing residents. Maybe they're empty nesters now. They're looking for sort of that middle ground between owning a home and living in an apartment. They don't want to live in an apartment where they have to worry about neighbors above and below, or they don't necessarily want to have to worry about the responsibilities of home ownership. Perhaps they can't afford a home right now, but they want the amenities. They want that backyard. They want that garage. They want the space and privacy. So people are turning to these build-to-rent communities that gives them sort of the amenities of a home without the responsibility of home ownership.
Break down the price difference for me in renting this and purchasing a home yourself.
Well, you know, it really does depend on what part of Atlanta you're talking about. I mean, we've seen some of these build-to-rent communities up north in Roswell, Lawrenceville, even down south in South Fulton. That's one of the build-to-rent communities you're looking at in this video right now. The average rent there in this community is between $2,100 and $2,500, which is a little more than you might pay for an apartment in this community. But again, you take out property taxes, you take out having to fix the HVAC system and maybe other HOA fees. And so people feel they're getting a bargain here until they can figure out what's going to happen with the housing market.
Seems like this model may be good for renters, but critics are saying it hurts home ownership.
Yeah, you know, there's a lot of critics of the build to rent model. Many people feel that it, you know, favors favors these large investors who go and buy up all these properties. They convert some of the existing rentals, I should say homes, into rentals. And so they have these big portfolios. You know, Chesley, if you and I want to buy a home, we likely have to take out a mortgage. But some of these big corporate landlords, they can buy up property after property, convert them, put cash offers up well above sometimes market value. And so they're able to sort of have a stronghold on the market and really squeeze out a lot of these homeowners. That's one of the big feelings. And people feel also that if you continue to build rental after rental, you're building fewer homes for sale. And we know that having a home, buying a home is one way that a lot of people build equity and generational wealth as well.
Yeah. You probably got a lot of people excited. They're watching this saying, "Ooh, I want to get on board." What do they need to know before they get into one of these build-to-rent communities?
Yeah, so before you sign on to one of these communities, because Chesley, they are popping up all over Metro Atlanta, you want to make sure that you know about this company that owns it. NextGen is the company that owns several of them here in Atlanta. You can simply do the research. What are their eviction policies like? Are they known to raise rent? Are they good with maintenance? Because you don't want to have a company that builds one of these communities in your city, in your community, and the owners live way in Arizona somewhere, and they're not necessarily taking care of the maintenance. So make sure you know not just that the property looks nice, but find out the nitty-gritty behind who owns it.
Mm-hmm. Some cities and counties are in the metro area pushing it or trying to limit or ban family single rentals. Has there been any laws passed or ordinances passed yet?
Well, there's been some efforts. We know that some of the cities, including South Fulton, they at one point tried to ban single family rentals altogether. There was a court case. It didn't end up going through. There has also been some effort at the state level to try and limit the number of homes that these developers can have. It did not pass. So for now, at least, it looks like we're going to see more and more of these build-to-rent communities popping up in Metro Atlanta. We've seen them all over.
All right. 11Alive's Jonathan Martin, looking forward to your report, man. Thanks for joining us on the show today.
Thank you.
All right. And you can watch Jonathan's full report tonight at 11 right here on 11Alive Plus. Plenty more stories for you coming up right after the break. This is 11Alive Plus. Friday marked the end of the legislative session at the state capitol, and now we're starting to get a good indication on who might be looking to move up for next year's midterm. Joining us now is Fred Hicks, a regular contributor to 11Alive's Georgia Vote, who also has worked on hundreds of political campaigns for nearly 20 years. Fred, you look good. Welcome back to the show, my friend.
Thank you. Glad to be back.
All right. We have two big races to watch out for, the U.S. Senate and the governor, and we're already starting to hear some rumblings about these races. Where do both those races stand today?
Absolutely. These are the two biggest races really in the state and in two of the biggest ones in the country. So in the U.S. Senate seat, we have the current Senator John Ossoff, who is running for re-election, and just last week posted that he raised $11 million, which is a large sum of money for a candidate, whether they are an incumbent or a challenger. So he's on the Democratic side. On the Republican side, we're not quite sure yet who is going to run. There's a lot of discussion that the current governor, who's term limited out, Brian Kemp, that he might throw his hat in the ring. If he does not, then I think we're looking at people like Marjorie Taylor Greene, the current congresswoman. She's expressed interest. And we might also see a couple of other statewide elected officials who would consider throwing their names or their hats in the ring on the Republican side for that coveted seat, because that is going to be the #1 targeted Senate seat in the entire country. So there's a lot of interest in that one. And then we turn the page and we look at the governor. Oh, go ahead.
Explain why you're saying that. Why are you saying that?
So right now, Republicans have a 53-seat majority. It's 53-47 in the Senate. We've seen a number of votes come down to just one vote, including the confirmation of the now Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth. And so for Democrats, you're trying to take back control of the Senate, or at least narrow Republican margins there. And for Republicans, one vote can make all the difference in enacting or continuing to enact President Trump's agenda. So that seat, which was held by Republicans for a long time, really until 2021, when Senators Ossoff and Warnock won in the special election, that's one that they want to try to claw back and get back. Because again, one vote makes all the difference. And given that Donald Trump won the state of Georgia in 2024 and Brian Kemp won in 2022, I think Republicans feel like that's a pickup seat there. So that's one that's going to be highly coveted. So, and it's going to be very, very, very expensive.
So one of the names being thrown out to that is Governor Brian Kemp. He's wrapping up his final term, right? And so he's being tossed in as a potential candidate for that seat. Is his decision, everybody waiting on his decision before they make a move, or what?
They absolutely are. Listen, he won his primary 3 years ago. 70+% of the vote he received over David Perdue. So he is the big fish in the Republican Party in Georgia. So people are going to wait on him, at least for a little while. If he does not do it again, I think Marjorie Taylor Greene, the current Congresswoman, is one who's looking at it. I think you could also see some of the other Republican Congress people putting their names in there if they want. If Governor Kemp does not do it, I think another name to potentially watch would be one of these people who's looking at running for governor, be it Chris Carr, the current Attorney General, or perhaps the Secretary of State, Brad Raffensperger. Again, if Brian Kemp does not do it and he makes that announcement to that effect, then you're going to see a rough and tough and tumbling race, so to speak, on the Republican side for the right to take on Jon Ossoff in November. So that's one to really watch, and that's going to be an expensive race.
Wow.
And of course, either way, irrespective of whether Governor Kemp decides to run for that or do something else, he is term limited out. So that's going to be the other place, right? Right now, we know that Attorney General Chris Carr is in that race. We expect the Lieutenant Governor Burt Jones to announce any day now that session is over that he is running for governor. And then we'll also potentially see maybe one other name in there as well. So that's going to be also a very expensive race. So Georgia is going to be at the epicenter of the American political scene yet again, as we've been every year since 2018.
While I got you, I want to talk to you about the race for Atlanta mayor. Do you see any movement or who could challenge Andre Dickens?
Yes. I think you might have a little token opposition here and there, but I don't expect there to be a significant opponent. Listen, Atlanta mayors run for re-election with the exception of Keisha Lance Bottoms 4 years ago, and they generally face token opposition and they generally win by 80+% of the vote. So I don't expect that you'll see anything major there. Now, there will be other elections on the ballot for Atlanta residents, including the race for city council president, the city's #2 position, because current city council president Doug Shipman has said that he is not running for re-election. So that would be a race to watch.
Wow. So we got a lot to look forward to. You're going to have to take up residency on the show,
absolutely.
okay? I know you're on the Georgia vote. But you might as well come on and take, man. We're going to need your insight, okay?
Listen, anytime you have me, I'll be here.
All right, Fred Hicks, really appreciate you joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Folks, I'm back with my final take right after this. You're watching The Take. All right, before we go, my final take. Today, sports betting is everywhere. Yeah, it's becoming a little bit more about the bet than enjoying the sport itself. In fact, it's becoming quite hostile for losers. Reports on fans approaching athletes, yelling at them, accusing them of the reason why they lost thousands and thousands of dollars is on the rise. Yeah, not only online, but also face-to-face. So much so, athletes are taking matters into their own hands because the leagues won't do anything about it. Like Boston Celtics final MVP Jaylen Brown, who played basketball, high school basketball, right here at Wheeler High School in Cobb County. He was quoted yesterday as saying, "Enough is enough. And if any fan comes to him blaming him for their loss, he's going to, insert bad word, them up." Jaylen not only plays basketball, he practices karate. Listen, I don't gamble because I don't like to lose. And now you're at the point where you not only lose your money, but you can also lose your teeth. Yeah. Leave the players alone, folks. If you're going to bet responsibly with your money, okay? Let's end the violence in sports. That's all I got for you today. Thanks for joining us. And don't forget, encourage someone.